Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Lori Arthur from IT Training, and today we're talking about Titan Insights Finance, accessing reports and using features. So today we're going to talk about training and support resources. We'll talk about terminology, what is Titan Insights, how to log in. Then we'll jump into a demo where I'll show you how to access the report dashboards, mark dashboards as favorites, and then we'll go through the features like filtering and chart and table options, bookmarks, exporting data, sharing reports with others. And then we'll have some dedicated Q&A time at the end. But as I said, you can always pop your questions in the chat at any time. So in terms of training and support, if you have questions about how to access and use Titan Insights, that would be us, IT Training. You're welcome to reach out to us. If you have questions about the report dashboards themselves, the data, or other inquiries like that, our ERP data warehouse team has set up a Titan Insights at fullerton.edu email account, and that would probably be the best place to send those questions. And if you have technical issues with Titan Insights, the IT help desk is who you would go to. And let me just really quickly show you the Titan Insights user guides. You can find them here. We have some basics and overview that apply to all of the different reports. And then for each of the different report dashboards, we have specific reports there. So there's also a place where you can access it in Titan Insights. So I'll be showing you that in a couple of minutes. So terminology we're going to be using, data warehouse is just an online repository for information. We actually combine a bunch of different databases that we put into our data warehouse. And that just allows you to view, filter, and search the information without necessarily needing access to all of the systems that feed into it. So the one that we are moving to now is called Titan Insights. The one that you might be familiar with, our previous one, is OBIEE. Those are both data warehouses. And so dashboard or report dashboard is just a way for us to group those reports together based on some sort of criteria. Today, the one that we're going to be using as an example is the revenue expense dashboard, and that allows users to view summary and detailed information on your budget, revenue, and expense transactions. But as you can see from the screenshot here, there's more than just that one report dashboard available. And then report or tab, these are the actual reports that you're going to interact with. There's where you're going to filter, sort, export data, all of that good stuff. We're going to be looking at the revenue expense summary report, just as an example. And that allows you to view summary totals of all your department budget, revenue, and expense transactions by fiscal year. So what is Titan Insights? It's a modernization of our campus data warehouse. It now has advanced cloud technology. They call it something, cloud agnostic solution, which simply means we're not dependent on a specific platform in the long term. So right now, what we're going to be using is Amazon Web Services or AWS QuickSight as a platform for our data warehouse. But if we decide to move to a new platform in the future, the way that we set it up now, it should be a lot easier to move those reports to the new platform without taking as much work as it did to move from OBIEE to Titan Insights. And you'll notice it's faster, more efficient. There's improved system stability and reliability. It is a replacement for OBIEE, but you will be able to access OBIEE until the end of 2025. Currently, all of the report types, student, HR, finance, they're now available in Titan Insights and of course still in OBIEE. So if you had access to a report in OBIEE, you should have access to the same report in Titan Insights. If you don't, that would be a good time to email that Titan Insights at fullerton.edu and have them double check to make sure that your access was set up correctly. If you didn't have access to a report in OBIEE, but now you want it, you do have to fill out the relevant access request form. So Campus Solutions if it's a student report, HR if it's an HR report, and Finance if it's a finance report. The recommended browser for Titan Insights is Google Chrome. You'll find that some of the other browsers, you can get to the reports, and for a lot of them, it works perfectly fine. But I found, especially with the finance reports, because with the detail reports in particular, there's a lot of columns, and you have to scroll to the right to be able to see all of the columns. And that scroll bar that allows you to scroll to the right sometimes doesn't pop up reliably in other browsers. So if you're looking at a detailed report and you're not able to see all of the columns, you want to double check that you're in Google Chrome, because we found that Google Chrome, it reliably shows up and you're able to see all of the different columns that are there. So in terms of logging into Titan Insights, there is a Titan Insights icon that is on the Titan Online widget in the campus portal. As an aside, the faculty dashboard, there is a link there on the faculty homepage that allows faculty to get directly to their FSSD reports, just so that you're aware of that too. All right, we're going to jump into our demo. All right, so here's my portal, and you can see here's Titan Insights. I went ahead and opened it already. And the default page that it takes you to is this favorites. And so you can see I have a couple that are marked as favorites. I'm going to recommend that you mark every single dashboard that you use as a favorite, simply because it is far less clicks to get to it. Because as soon as you log into QuickSight, it's right here. You pick whichever dashboard and you're right into it. If you go to recent, you can see recent ones that you have accessed, including ones that maybe you've forgotten to mark as a favorite. We'll look at shared folders in a moment. Dashboards, it's tempting to want to use this, but I find that it's kind of difficult to find reports here. Now, I have access to pretty much all of the reports, which is why my list is really long. If you find that this dashboard works for you, you're able to find stuff and use it, that's absolutely fine. There's no problem with using it. It just seems a little bit cluttered to be able to find what you're looking for. So typically, we have you go to shared folders, and then you'll select the folder of reports that you want to access. We're going to take a little detour here real quick to look at user guide, and then user guide landing page. Just to point out that here is where there are links to the user guides. So I would definitely recommend that you bookmark where we have all of the user guides, but if you happen to be in Titan Insights and you want to go get to one of these really quickly, this is a great spot to go. So to get back to the landing page, I'm going to click on the Cal State Fullerton logo, and it takes me right back here. So now I can go back to shared folders, and we're going to look at finance, and then we're going to look at revenue expense CFS. And now we'll click on revenue expense CFS. So you can see it's a lot of clicks to get down to the actual dashboard itself, which is why I recommend that you click the little star next to it, and that way it's always in your favorites and you don't have to go looking for it under shared folders. All right, so here we are on the revenue expense summary. So usually with reports, you have filters up at the top, and some of the filters are like fiscal year, where I can only choose one at a time. Technically speaking, on this report, 2025 is actually, it is a fiscal year, so it's 2025, 2026. But I can only pick one of them at a time. I can't run multiple fiscal years. Other filters, like department, you can see that I have access to pretty much all of them. So I can pick and choose which ones I would like. So I can either check or uncheck if I want to, or I can do a search. So let's say I want IT telecommunications, and I want 10352, oops, 10352. Let's show selected. Oh, it's selected all of them. Here, let's do this, and then uncheck. That should work a little bit better. So if I choose to show selected, that reminds me, here's all the ones that I have selected. Because sometimes you can see it very easily up here in the actual filter, box itself. But sometimes if you select a lot of options, you want to come here to show selected to double check that you selected the right ones. And of course, you can click the X to remove one very easily if you would like. So that's one way of selecting filters. This is more of a show me the options that I do want on this report, as opposed to an exclude, which is I want to see everything except certain things. So on this particular report, we often will have you with the account codes remove the university funded benefits account codes, because the benefits kind of don't really impact your budget. They kind of come in and go out at the same month. So a lot of people choose to remove them because it's sort of extraneous to what they're doing. So I'm going to show you here how you would do something like that. So first we're going to do show selected. because I do want to select everything, but I only want to remove the 603s. There we go. So don't click the select all results. You just want to click to uncheck each one of these 603s. And it'll take me a minute because there's a few. And you can see below in the table, it's rerunning it as I'm deselecting these. So there, it's removed all of the 603s. And if I want, I can go back here to show selected. And if I scroll down, you can see we go from 602 to 604. You can obviously scroll down and simply click the X next to each one that you want to remove, but depending on how many variables you're seeing, it may be easier to search for the value and then remove it that way. But I could remove all of the work studies from this. Maybe I don't want to see those. Very easily, just like that. And so this is more of a show me everything except these certain filters. So that's another way that you can do filters. On this particular report, there are some additional views or report layouts. So we have our default report. We have the one that adds in a column called project to date, which shows you detail for multi-year projects. So you're seeing how much you spent to date on a particular project. And then there's also one that will strip out all of the university benefits account codes. So if you don't want to do it this way, you can choose your options here and then set it to be without the all university benefits full view. I think it's easiest just to work with it under account, but you can use that too. Absolutely fine. Oh, I should also show you. So let's say that I've selected a few filters here and I'm not getting any results, or I accidentally made this selection here. If I click on this options and then reset, that resets just this filter. So it didn't touch any of my other filter settings, just this one. So I really like that because then if you make a mistake somewhere, you don't have to start all over again. You can kind of just reset these filters individually if you'd like to. And as with before, you have the option to choose which chart fields that you want to see and in what order using these drop-down menus. When you click on one of the columns over here, you have the options to expand or collapse. So collapse is hiding it. So you can sort of hide like fun code if you want to. You can do the same thing when you click on a row. So I can collapse this. Focus will kind of remove the other contents here. So you can kind of focus just on this particular chart field or this particular row. But when you click on one of the column headers over here where it has the actuals in it, all you really can do is sort ascending or descending. You can't hide one of these columns. These are kind of mandatory columns. So depending on what the report is showing you, you may see different options for different columns on the same report. There's some other options here. So maximize is one where sometimes it improves the readability of it and sometimes it doesn't do much. It kind of depends on the size of your screen. I find that a lot of these options, and we'll look at another one later, really help if you're on like a laptop. But when you're on a bigger screen monitor, there isn't much of a difference. But you can play around with it and see if it helps. There's also this option here under menu options. I really like this show plus or minus buttons. Because what this does is, let's say I want to see the next department ID, but I don't want to have to scroll through everything for 10220. I can simply click on this minus and it collapses that entire department ID. I can still see the grand totals, but I am now able to see the next department ID in the list. And I can do this for any of these chart fields. And then when I'm ready to look at it again, I can just expand it. I kind of like this a little bit better than the collapsing and expanding, because with the collapse and expand, it kind of reruns the report a little bit each time you do that. And it's very fast, but I like this a little bit easier. It's just, I like it. Also under menu options, you'll see the options to export to CSV and to Excel. So we'll look at the CSV first. This is pretty much the same as it was in OBI-EE. You get something with no frills. There's no formatting. There's no styling to it, but it's a lot easier to start with this and create sorts and filters and all kinds of other information. Whereas if you do export to Excel, it's going to export it exactly as you see it on the screen. And this is almost impossible to start sorting or doing anything because you've got all these subtotals in there. So neither one is right or wrong necessarily, but I feel like if you're exporting, the CSV is probably the better one to do. So you saw those pop-ups that I got when my reports were ready, but let's say, oh, you missed that little pop-up. If you go here to the export icon and then view exports, there they are. Those are the two that I have run today. This exports only saves while you're here. So as soon as I close out of this, I navigate away from QuickSight, I move to a different website, it's going to get rid of these. So like I taught this class yesterday, I can't see the exports that I did in there. It's only showing me what I've done right now. So you'll want to make sure if you do export anything, that you do go grab it from here if it doesn't automatically download. You know, in this case for Chrome, it automatically downloaded them for me. But if it doesn't, or you just need to re-download it, you can come here. So also under exports, you have the options to print and to generate a PDF. I'm going to show you the generate PDF one because that'll take for a moment. And we'll click on view export so we can kind of watch it go. For both print and generate PDF, I find they don't work well for the finance reports, particularly these, because it's only going to print or export a single page. And I don't think there is a single report on any of the finance reports that is just a single page. Some of the other dashboards you might find they're okay, but not for finance. So generally, I would say you're going to always be exporting the data directly from the table as we did the export to CSV or to Excel, rather than doing a print or generate PDF. But if it works for you, there's no reason why you can't. So it's taking it a minute to do this. There we go. So this PDF, it doesn't automatically download. So I'm going to click to download. And then we'll open it. And yeah, it's just a single page. It doesn't scroll. So I don't think there's much, it's not very useful, I don't think, for these reports. So also up here at the top, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry, I should talk about the detail report real quick. So each of these are hyperlinks. So let's see. Let's click on one of these. And notice when I click on it, I actually have the ability to go to any of the detailed drill reports. So I clicked on the current year actuals, but I could go to any of these other drill reports. I don't have to go to current year actuals, but I'm going to do that. And it's opened in a new tab, and there we are. And I can scroll over and see each of the individual transactions that make up that summary total. And so if I close that, I'm right back to where I was. Okay, so let's say that I have all of my settings exactly the way that I want, and I want to save it. That's where the bookmarks come in. You can see I've created a bunch of them. So I'm going to click Add Bookmark, and I might just call this Telecom and Rollout No Benefits September. And save. And so now it's saved here. I have the options to update a particular bookmark. So if I make some changes and I want to then update an existing bookmark with those changes, I can rename it. I can also set it as a default, meaning that every time that I come to this report, it will use these settings by default, or I can delete them. So I can delete one that I don't need. Keep in mind these bookmarks apply to all of the reports. They're not per report the way that they were in OBIEE. So these settings will get applied to each of the different reports as I go to them, which I may want. In this case, they're fairly generic settings. I've just specified a department and account. And so I might want to see that on all of the different reports. But if you have a bookmark that is intended for a particular report, you may want to name the bookmark something so that oh, this is one that I use for budget detail. This is one I use for actual detail. In whatever way you want, you're the only one who's going to see these names. So it only really has to be meaningful to you. But just keep that in mind, that they apply to all of the report tabs. You can also share a view. So here it's generated a link, and I can copy that and paste it into a Teams chat, into an email, however I want to send it to somebody. And then they will want to log into Titan Insights and then click on my link. And that should take them to the exact same report. Obviously, they would need to have access to revenue expense. And in this case, because I chose particular departments, they'd need access to those particular departments. But other than that, they'll be able to view this report that I've created. It's not going to be tied to my report. So they'll have to go here to bookmark and create a bookmark, and then they could call it Lori's report or whatnot. But it won't be tied to mine. So if I update this one, it's not going to update for everybody that I sent that link to. It's just sort of a static report. There's also another view that's up here at the top, this fit to window. And again, this kind of depends on what your screen resolution is. You can see if I do this, how it's getting tinier and tinier because it's trying to fit everything into this window. And that isn't really helpful here on this monitor because it's kind of a large one, but I find it does actually help on a laptop screen. So on a smaller screen, this can make it a little bit bigger for you. So again, something to kind of try out. If you're having trouble seeing something, if you want to make it a little bit bigger, sometimes that view and like this maximize can help a little bit with that. And then lastly, we have reset to original dashboard. This is, I don't know what I did, but I want to go back to the default. And that will reset all of your personalizations and settings for it. Generally speaking, if you're seeing no data somewhere and you're not sure which filter it is that's doing that, this reset will help. Typically, especially with the revenue expense reports, it's the current fiscal year and the current month. So as long as you have some sort of transaction in the current month or prior, then you should see data here. All right, any questions? Can you get rid of the account subtotals? On here, I don't think so. It's kind of the way that, yeah, see, I can't even collapse it, this subtotal. So I don't think on these particular reports that you can remove that subtotal. I would think if you don't want to see the subtotal, you might want to just export to CSV because the CSV will not have subtotals on it. So that would be my recommendation. Go over the exporting reports. Absolutely. Let me go ahead and go back here and choose this one so it's not trying to export too much. So you notice when I hover here over this table, now I have the menu options and I can export to CSV or to Excel. So if I choose CSV, super fast. And this just downloaded directly to my downloads folder. But if for some reason it doesn't, you can always come here to export, view exports, and then click to download. And then it'll download to your downloads usually. Can you request changes for the reports in the future? That would be Titan Insights at Fullerton.edu. That's the team that works on the reports. So if you have suggestions for, hey, can we have a version of this that doesn't have subtotals? Can we remove the subtotals? I know some people have asked about getting a multi-year version of like the revenue expense reports, that's that Titan Insights at fullerton.edu. And yeah, they will take a look at it and they'll see if it's something that they can do in the future. I think they were trying to get things as equal to the existing OBIEE versions for this initial rollout, but then in the future, they should be able to come back and kind of tweak them a little bit too. Is this report updated same as OBIEE nightly refresh? Yes. It's using the exact same export, I believe, that is going to OBIEE. So that part I don't believe has changed. So it should be updated each evening. Well, technically it's really early morning that process used to run. So sometimes if you're looking at like particularly these reports every single morning, if it's really early, it may not have run yet. So typically by about 9 a.m. is when they have updated these reports. All right, thank you everyone.